We have big news. We have exciting news for you. Tell them what it is, Serena.
We are super excited to announce that we are starting our first membership this January 2024.
Yay! Membership.
So we're excited to let you know that we will be hosting a monthly membership where when you join, you will be
with us live in a Zoom room once a month for a workshop like we just hosted. It's going to be a workshop like that, one topic each month, a different topic. You might even help us come up with the following month's topic from inside our membership. Super excited to meet you. It was so fun meeting a few of you in our inaugural workshop. So we're really looking forward to that.
And when you are a member, you will also be receiving a monthly newsletter where I'm going to be a little more intimate and I'll be sharing the things that are working and the things that aren't working for me.
Yeah, like taking a tool that you've learned from the podcast and how you're implementing it and how well that worked, or maybe if it didn't work. And then Amma can put in my 2 bits worth. We'll see how that goes. But a membership newsletter and a membership live Zoom room workshop starting in January 2024. Can sign up through our Patreon link in the show notes, yeah?
Yes, everything will be in the show notes, and we can't wait to see you there, listeners.
We can't wait. Yay!
Welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. And today we are celebrating our 2-year anniversary. Well, the anniversary actually falls on the 22nd, which is tomorrow. But today is Amma's daughter's actual birthday. So I wanted us to talk about how time flies by. And I wanted to remind all you parents, all us parents, that time really does fly by. And when we have littles, it might seem like we're stuck in this place of exhaustion and overwhelm because they require lots of attention and lots of help. And it can seem very overwhelming. And as you know, many people, mostly strangers, are always coming up to us saying, "Oh, enjoy them while they're little. Time goes by so fast. This is the best time," even though it feels like the hardest time. They tell us to enjoy it. And although it's annoying, maybe everybody says it to us because it is so true. And so what better way to portray this than Amma sharing her birth story to help us realize that today we're giving birth and tomorrow our babies are turning 38 years old. Thank you for joining us to celebrate our 2-year anniversary. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for making this exist, because this baby is a beautiful baby that I'm so grateful for, that I have learned so much from, and I'm very grateful for the Nurturing Parent, and I'm grateful to have you guys here with us. So let's get into this week's episode.
Hey, Mama, welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. Do you want to end the constant battles for bath time? Do you find yourself emotionally exhausted at the end of the day? Do you wake up with big hopes for a smooth day of fun with your little ones, only to face an early morning meltdown because you peeled their banana the wrong way?
Silly you.
Silly you.
Hey, I'm Serena. I'm a mama of 2 little ones, and as a new mama, I constantly questioned myself. I wanted to make sure I was raising respectful kids while also building a strong bond with them. But I discovered that I had to unlearn my ideas that punishment was the way. With Amma Lisa's encouragement, I've been practicing a respectful and gentle parenting approach, which is strengthening our bond as a family.
And hi, I'm Amma Lisa. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an Amma. And I have over 40 years of experience in childcare and parent coaching. And I am so excited to share the knowledge I've gained over these years with you.
Together in this podcast, each week we will explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm excited today because today is my daughter's birthday. If you're listening to this on the day this episode drops, it's November 21st. And so for this episode, we decided that I would share with you my birth story. And even though it's 38 years ago, I actually have some very potent memories still in all this time. I think it's part of life that most of us will never forget. So Serena had shared her birth story. One of them, we can't quite remember if there was just her second baby that she gave birth to after we were already running the podcast, right?
Yes, and I just kind of slightly compare it to my first experience.
Right. So maybe at some point you can share your first birth experience too, maybe when it's her birthday and the podcast falls on that day. Anyway, I'm really excited to share this birthing story with you. And I wanted to start by saying that I was what I consider one of the lucky women in that I got to attend births before I had my own child, before I gave birth myself. And women out there listening, it is the best thing if you can possibly attend a birth before you give birth to your own child. I know some of you are first-time mamas and you're pregnant right now while you're listening. If you know anybody who's pregnant that you're close to, oh my gosh, it's an incredible experience. It's just such a blessing. So, and for those of you who are pregnant, either for the first time or for subsequent births, we have a series of 5 episodes that we recorded with my darling friend, Sharon, who is a veteran midwife from 50 years ago. She started practicing midwifery.
And I love that she kind of guided you through, or you were able to learn from her and I was able to learn from her.
Yes.
It really, really helped me have a wonderful experience my second time around.
Yeah. So we wanted to point to you, if you are expecting again, to go and listen to those episodes. Start on episode number 23. And it's a series of 5, at the end of which the 6 and 7 are Serena telling her birth story.
Yes.
And so why I brought Sharon up was because she was practicing midwife when I was a teenager, and I attended my first birth at her invitation. And of course, the mom and dad's okay with that. When I was 15 years old. And it was incredible. It was just so incredible. And then I have attended a few more before I gave birth at the age of 24, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And since then, I have attended some more births as well. And it's just such a beautiful experience. And for a woman, I mean, back when we were living in villages and tribes and clans, way, way back in the day, everybody, like young women would have been subject to, seeing birth firsthand. It's just what we do as humans, right? So I feel really lucky to have had that experience. So having had those experiences of watching and attending births and witnessing other women give birth, 2 things. One, if they can do it, I can do it. That's how I went into my birthing experience. It's like, oh, okay. And then it also opened up my mind to women have been doing this for how many thousands of years? Like
Many.
Forever since humans have existed, we have been giving birth. And so I trusted that I could do this. And I came into the experience trusting my body. And I think that's huge. And I think a lot of women who don't grow up with a best friend midwife or with a community where we are invited to get other people's births, I think that there's, you may not come into the birthing experience trusting your body. And that was a real gift for me that I came in with. And the other thing is that even though I had all of those experiences prior to going into labor, I went into labor just like all of you, not knowing what labor was going to feel like and not knowing what a contraction was really going to feel like.
I
I had
think
had a,
that's, I'm sorry, I think
yeah,
that's the craziest part is
right?
going into labor not knowing what a contraction feels like. Because to me it felt like really intense period cramps, and I remember
Mhm.
thinking, if this is a contraction, why was I never told that it feels like a really intense period cramp?
Yes, yes. And for me, I never had period cramps. I had lower backache with my periods. And
Mm,
guess what? I had what they call back labor.
mm,
I experienced the same discomfort, only magnified during labor that I experienced premenstrually or during my period as well.
mm,
Like, yes. So it could either be in that cramping sensation that most women get or in that achy back that some of us get with our periods. So, yeah, that's a good bit of information to have, right?
yeah.
And I did know that. Um, that it would be kind of similar to that. I did have that information, but what I didn't know was how I would experience it, right? So, funnily enough, the first contraction, I'd had a few contractions, Braxton Hicks, for a few days. So, we knew my body was getting ready. And I was sitting on the toilet. This is a little maybe TMI, but there I was because, with birth, I don't actually think anything is TMI. I think that we need to share all the pieces.
Agreed.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because other women, you might be sitting on the toilet and go, "Whoa, what's going on with my baby belly? Like what's going on with this protrusion of a stomach underneath?" Like it's not my stomach, it's my belly. And it all of a sudden got hard and firm. There was no sensation of cramping or anything at that time, but I could watch it just making signs with my hands. It just tightened. Everything just tightened, 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 tightened. And then it let go. And I went, whoa. Because that was different. I hadn't seen that with the Braxton Hicks. It felt different. It felt significant. So I told my partner, Patrick, my baby daddy, and I said, okay, I think this might be happening. And then within half an hour or something like that, he had to go to work. He worked evenings. So I was like, oh, it's fine. You should go. And it's just every now and then, very spaced apart. Off he goes to work. Boom. Now the contractions
Of
get a
course.
little bit more regular, right? Yeah. So my mom was going to come and be with me. And my 13-year-old sister was also going to come and be with me. And I had a midwife who was going to be my sort of labor coach during the delivery. And she was going to come over. Now, there was snow on the ground, which where I live on the west coast of Canada, on the southwest coast, is unusual for November. But nonetheless, I used to tell my daughter there was a foot of snow. But then when she saw pictures, she was like, Mama, that looks like 4 or 5 inches. For me, pregnant mama, it felt like a foot. Okay. So, so when I actually asked my mom and my sister if they would give us a little voice clip about their experiences, and we haven't received those. But what I'll tell you is my mom said, um, the first thing she remembers is my little sister Trinity saying, "Come on, we gotta go, we gotta go." Like getting her, we gotta go soon. Let's go. So they arrived probably an hour and a half after Pat had gone to work. And then after they got there, I think at some point we called him and said, "Yeah, you should probably come home." So he came home. And then at some point, my midwife arrived. Now, I know all that happened, and it is 38 years ago. So you're going to have to give me a little grace with my memories. But all that I really remember is in those earliest stages of labor, I spent them mostly by myself in our bedroom with the door closed and the stereo on. And I turned some music up really loud and I danced. And I danced through the contractions. And that might sound really weird to some of you, but one of the women who I loved and adored, she was like a big sister to me too. And she had this very, lovely hippie in the garden with 20 people around her giving birth experience. And Sharon had told me she had danced through her labor. So I was like, if Sally can dance, I can dance, because we all just loved dancing so much back then. And I loved dancing through those early contractions. I mean, I was a dancer. I love to dance. I love music. And it was a beautiful way just to really connect with my body. And that's what I focused on. I focused on connecting with my body, going into the contractions, allowing my body to guide me. I think a lot of women who don't have experience with labor and birth and haven't been around it and haven't maybe had any, birthing classes, which I strongly recommend. Sharon does offer coaching to our listeners, with you and your partner and me there. So that's an option. But I believed that my body knew what to do. And I think that a lot of women nowadays, we tend to, try and escape from the pain or pull away from the pain or tighten up when it gets hard. And that's the opposite of what we need to do. We need to just allow our bodies. And that's what I did. I allowed my body to do its thing. And I was kind of almost the observer. That's how I felt. I was like, okay, I'm observing me going through labor. Then there comes the time where all of you who have given birth will know where you can't really dance anymore. You can't really talk anymore, or you don't feel like it through the contractions, right? There's still a gap of time in between. But anyway, when I'm in I can't talk through contractions anymore, I used my breathing technique that I had learned from my midwife / labor coach. She was trained in England, in Britain, I don't know, maybe Ireland. Anyway, and she'd been a midwife for decades, and I loved her. She was a friend in the community. That's the other different thing about from my births to your births, Serena, is that I'm in a small community. I had a doctor who I still know to this day, even though she doesn't work as my doctor anymore. Love her. I had this Sue, who was my midwife, who was a community member who I love. I used to babysit for Sue. And I had my mom and my sister come to my birth, and as well as my partner, of course. And the nurses, I knew the nurses who were in attendance, so it was really kind of a village feeling, which I personally think is a beautiful way to experience giving birth. But for most women, there's this tendency to be afraid of the pain and pull back from the pain. And I used this breathing technique that I had learned from Sue, where she taught me that it was like a train going up a steep mountain to the top of the mountain and then coming down the other side. And there's a breathing pattern that goes with that. Some people talk about contractions like a wave that comes up and up and up and up and crests and then comes down. So whichever analogy works for you. For me, I use that train breathing. And as soon as the contraction would start, I would do my cleansing breath, and then I would start doing the train breathing. And those breaths guided me through the contractions. And the stronger the contractions got, the stronger and more focused I got on my breathing. And I would go ride the contraction, and then I would release it at the other end and rest as much as I could. There was one moment where I remember our cat you know how, I don't, if any of you have cats, you'll know if you cry or if you're upset, they'll jump up to try to make sure you're okay. And the cat, when I was doing some of this really heavy breathing, jumped up on my lap and I had my eyes closed and he scared the heck out of me, totally threw me off my rhythm. And I was really nervous for a minute. I wouldn't be able to get back to being in sync with my body. And I think there was one more contraction where I was like, oh, okay, I gotta get back there. And then I was back again. And so, that indicated for me that if I got into that place of feeling nervous or anxious about it, that it wasn't going to go as well. And so by trusting, coming back to that place of trusting and coming back to that place of focusing on the breath. And when I'm talking about it right now, what I'm feeling is it's like a meditation. It's like meditating, right? We're encouraged to bring our focus back to the breath, bring our focus back to the breath. And that's what I did throughout my labor. Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Right?
I've never connected that with meditation, but that makes a lot of sense.
It was the most profound and powerful meditation I have ever done. And it lasted quite a few hours. So now I'm at the house. There's this quote unquote foot of snow on the ground. And Sue, our midwife, says, maybe we should go a little sooner than later because we're going to the hospital. I would have had a home birth, except my darling Sharon, who also would have been my midwife, and I would have had a home birth. She happened to live in New Mexico at the time and was studying to be a nurse. I mean, hello. What was that? So I didn't have Sharon, and my partner also was not super comfortable with a home birth. And I knew that I did not want to take care of his emotions or concerns while I was in labor. So, and also Sue, who was my next choice of a midwife, only would do hospital births. My doctor, Jan, only would do hospital births. And I love Jan and I love Sue. And I also love our little hospital. I'm lucky again in that we have a little country hospital. Like I said, I knew the nurses on staff. It's a tiny little space. I had the room to myself, So it wasn't a big concession. So we went to the hospital earlier than we would have because of the foot of snow on the ground. And so when we're at the hospital, I'm just going to share a few memories. One of my memories, so now we're in deeper labor, right? Into the getting more and more intense, of course, as time goes by. I think my labor all together from that first contraction when I was sitting on the toilet to the actual delivery was approximately 19 hours.
Wow.
A lot of it wasn't really heavy. I think my active labor was maybe 7 hours, so there was a lot that was kind of do and dancing and all those things, right? So I timed the 19 hours from that very, very first contraction, which I know Sharon just told me recently, and I can't remember. It's like when you get into an active labor, maybe it's when you can't talk through a contraction. Maybe that's where you start counting. But anyway, that's what it was. So one of the memories I have being in the hospital, this nice little cottage hospital, when you get into the car and you transport to the hospital, often everything slows down. And sometimes it stops, and mine just seemed to stop. And so Sue, got me settled and everything. I got settled in my room and everything. And then she came in and she said, no, we're going to get you up and get you walking. Let's go. Come on, come along. So we got up and we went for a walk down the hall, and nothing. And she's like, all right, then lie down again if you need to, if you want to. So I lay down and boom, I went into the next level of contractions. And that's unusual. Most often, a labor coach or a midwife or a doula will encourage us to walk and to move around so that it'll get the contractions going. I was the opposite, and I'm not, it's not very usual, so don't expect it. But every time I got up to move around, everything slowed down again. So then I'd lie down or stop moving, and boom, it would come up to the next level. So I was a funny anomaly in that way, which was fine with me. It allowed me to rest a little extra. Another memory I have is that Patrick was holding one knee. Now we're in the delivery room, actually. Patrick's holding one knee. My mom is holding the other knee. Sue is up close to my head. I'm kind of not lying down, but I'm leaning back on, a birthing plinth with the back raised up. So I'm sort of sitting up. And I wanted my legs up and bent so that Dr. Jan's and got a good view of what's going on. And my little sister is standing over there in the doorway of the room. And I looked over at one point when I'm like in deep contractions. And as soon as I came out of the contraction, I turned around and I said, come in. What are you doing over there? I didn't want her to miss the thing. The actual event. You're too far away. I also remember Pat was breathing with me at one point, and he had to go sit down out in the little area where she'd been standing and put his head between his knees and breathe so he wasn't going to pass out. So if your partner is going to breathe with you, they're not going through labor. So they're going to get lightheaded, and just make sure they don't pass out. And another memory that I have that isn't quite so fun, but I think it's a good thing for mamas to know that I hadn't been told and I hadn't experienced with any of the other births I'd been at, is that I felt like I was going to be sick at some point. And I'm on the delivery table and I'm like, what is going on? I feel like I'm going to be sick. I mean, these are thoughts. I'm not able to speak that much, but I sort of indicated to the nurse that I was going to be sick. And she brought this tiny little kidney-shaped blue plastic container over, and I looked at it and I looked at her and I just shook my head. Like I knew there was a lot more coming out than was going to land in that tiny little kidney shaped bowl. It was ridiculous, the poor woman. But anyway, the reason I shared that, because I didn't know that some of us vomit when we're in labor. I did not know that. And it was kind of shocking to me. And I felt a bit embarrassed. And you don't have to feel embarrassed, because it's one of the normal things that sometimes happens.
Yeah, it might come out your mouth, might come out the
other end. Yes, exactly. Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to share was that I'm following my body's lead. I'm letting my body do what it needs to do. And what it needed to do during the actual pushing phase was make really loud noises. I wasn't, my sister, when I asked her if she would give us a recording of her experience, she said, I don't really remember very much. She said, the only thing that I really remember that you might not like is that you were screaming a lot. And I said, I was not screaming. I was bellowing like a cow. To me, they were such deep, dark, primal sounds. Like, oh, it's like thinking of karate. If you ever watch people practicing and they say, to get that energy moving through their body, that's what my body did. And I was pushing with all that sound, pushing that baby out with having the sound be part of the energy of the push. And it worked because, again, a bit of an anomaly. It's not completely unusual, but it's not normal. Normal births, you birth the head of your baby, and then you have a break, and the baby's body rotates to the side and the shoulders are born. My baby, maybe because I was pushing with such loud animal sounds and energy, she was born in one push. So the head was crowning, push, woo, here's a baby. And the last thing I wanted to just say about this delivery of my one and only baby I got to give birth to that feeling that I had immediately after pushing her out, her coming out of my body and being put immediately onto my bare naked torso, and my putting my hands on her tiny little body on top of me was an absolute profound love that I've never experienced ever before in any way. I will say there's a similar level of love when I became a grandmother, but that sensation, and also there was this euphoric high sensation from the experience of giving birth. I have since read that some people talk about experiencing orgasm after birth. Have you ever heard that?
I have not.
They actually experience that sensation of orgasm. And when I read that first, I was like, oh, maybe that's what I had, because it was euphoric. It was just like, whoa. I was floating on cloud nine. It was. And so that experience that I had, no guilt, no blame if you chose to have medication in your labor or delivery for your own babies. And I strongly encourage you to learn about labor and delivery and be able to birth without the medicine, because it's natural, it's normal. You can trust your body knows how. You get yourself educated about it, and you might experience something like that euphoric experience that I got to have.
I actually can relate to that because with my first one, I did have the epidural, and it was like I was trying to connect with my baby after. Maybe because I'm coming down from the drugs, and it was different than the second time where I did feel a high after giving birth. The second time I didn't have an epidural, and I definitely would say I was like being high after giving birth. And like I was saying cloud nine. I just felt like I was on cloud nine, just.
Yes.
But I really can relate to that.
Oh, I'm so glad. That really actually makes me feel really good, because that second birth came after we did our 5-part interview with Sharon, and you learned so much from her, and you and your husband had some private coaching with her as well. Some, birth prep kind of coaching, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it made a difference. Such a I remember talking to you as soon as you'd had her, and I was just like so happy. So yeah, trust your bodies. I trusted my body. I allowed my body to guide me. I got myself educated in many, many ways prior to my birth experience. And even, having been to births and things, I still learned more and more from my midwife during the preliminary, leading up to my birth. And I practiced the breathing and all those kinds of things. So I'm thrilled that my tiny baby, I can't even believe she's 38 today. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you for sharing. A part of why we wanted to record this episode was because it came from the idea of just being present with our kids, because today you can be giving birth and tomorrow your baby's turning 38 years old, and it just time flies so fast. But
it really does. That's what we had scheduled for today, was an episode about being present and the gift that it is to be a parent of young children. As hard as it is, we know it's hard. We are doing it. You're doing it. I've done it. We get that it's hard. We get that it's frustrating when people keep saying, enjoy the little moments, But the thing is, for me, they're so far in the past now, and I miss them so much. So when I realized it was my daughter's birthday, I said, maybe instead of that focus, maybe we'll just tell my birthing story for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks for bringing that part in too, because luckily I was a mama who did get really, really, lived through my mama years very present with my child.
Yeah, and for me as a new mom, it's really hard with just the fast-paced life that we're living now and the million things that we have to be doing, multitasking while we're multitasking, that we just forget that how we have to be present for our kids. So
yeah, it's the number one most important thing in my book.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for listening. That was fun to share, and we love you.
All right, parents. So to dive into my gems from this week's episode, first, I just wanted to say thank you, Amma, for sharing your birth story. I truly enjoyed it. I loved putting myself in the picture and feeling like I was there with you to experience your birth. So to get into my gems, that brings me to the first one, the ability to experience a birth before going into it. Or even if you went into it, just experiencing somebody else's birth, I think is such a beautiful thing. The next time around, if my kids could come, I'd love for them to be able to experience it. But if you have the opportunity to experience a birth, I think that is such a blessing and so awesome. My second gem was if you're expecting or if your partner is expecting, I have shared in the show notes the 5-part series where Sharon joins us and prepares you for birth. And I wanted to share that because it was such a blessing for me giving birth the second time around. I wanted to do it without an epidural. I got an epidural the first time, and so the second time I just wanted to have more control over my body. And my mom and my grandma did it without an epidural, so I wanted to see if I could do it without one. And it was really such an amazing experience. And really learning from Sharon truly helped me advocate for myself because the doctor was pushing for Pitocin a lot. And thankfully, I was educated and I was able to stand up for myself and my husband as well. So if you are expecting or know somebody that's expecting, those are great episodes to listen to. And we just wanted to thank you for being here with us today. Thank you if you have been listening from the beginning. Thank you so much for being here and watching our baby grow. And we just wanted to remind you that it's just a season. Our littles are really little for such a short amount of time, and then they're big and they have busy lives and they forget about us, their parents maybe, and we have to try to find the time that they can make for us to schedule us in. And so we hope that this podcast has taught you some things to make it a little easier, a little more enjoyable, and create a stronger connection between you and your littles. We love you so much, and we just ask that if you enjoy this show or if you have learned something, please, 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 if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, you click on our show in Apple Podcasts, scroll down, and just leave us a quick review. It helps other families find us, and that's our goal, to reach as many families as we can. And that would be an amazing second anniversary gift from you. So thank you so much, parents. We love you, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
I want to sing with you. I want to dance with you. I want to laugh with you. Oh, how I love to be with you. I do. I do. Such a short time we've been together. Seems like a lifetime or two. Never knew I could love